Welcome to the Long Range Pursuit Podcast, presented by Gunwerks, where we learn about and share long-range shooting techniques, science, and gear.
All right, welcome to this week's episode of Long Range Pursuit Podcast. I'm Garrett Wall, your host this week, and joined by a neat guest down from just south of us in Utah. A topic that we don't talk a lot about here at Gunwerks, but I'm very excited to dive into. And we've got the crew from Utah Airguns up here playing with us at our range, and we're shooting some of their stuff. And I've got Justin Jacobson here with us today live to chat a little bit about air guns of all topics. Justin, welcome.
All topics. Who knew, right?
That's right. Welcome, sir. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks for having us. Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Well, the question, let's just dive right in because our listeners are going to want to know very quickly,
right?
Why is Gunwerks talking about air guns? What brought you guys up to, in January of all times, what brought you guys up to Cody?
Well, look, the weather was just too warm in Utah.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah. Well, we do a thing on our YouTube channel. It's called Walkthrough Wednesdays, and it's a real simple. It's a fun, literally just follow each other around the shop, you know, and it gets to people get to see like what the day to day is like at Utah Airguns and behind the scenes basically, and we started to branch out with Walkthrough Wednesdays a little bit, walking through other friends, businesses that are around it. And we walked through Gallantson's Guns in Salt Lake a couple of weeks ago, and we, the subject came up about the accountant. Oh yes, Tim had one there.
Our Gunwerks built. That's right. Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, if there's one gun that just blows your mind that comes around once in a while, this is one of them.
That was it.
So he was showing me all that, and Derek saw that, and he said, Walkthrough Wednesdays. He goes, I may steal that from you.
I love it.
Be my guest. He said, what about doing a Walkthrough Wednesday out here?
Yeah.
And I said, sounds fun. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So here we are.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Well, I unfortunately didn't make the invite down to the range to shoot, but I understand this morning you guys got to shoot a little of our stuff, and then our team got to shoot a little of your stuff. Is that right?
Yeah, we were trading some show and tell today.
Awesome.
It was awesome. It was super fun.
Well, good. Well, let's dive into a little bit about your company and this topic, Airguns. I'm very interested in it. I'll broach the subject here, and then we'll come back to it. But
sure. I
think it was 2021, right after COVID, SCI announced that they were going to open, some of the records of some recognition for airgun category.
Yeah,
and I imagine that this sport has only grown in those last 3 or 4 years. I hear more and more about it, but it's piqued my interest. Derek's been playing with these guns for a couple years now, and some of the things he's accomplished, I can remember, our older PMR mounted on that at one point.
Yeah.
He has had a lot of fun over the last couple years.
Yeah.
So, why don't you introduce your company a little bit and what our listeners would like to hear about that?
Okay, fair enough. Well, again, my name is Justin Jacobson. I own Utah Airguns.
Okay.
We are a retailer of high-end. Our wheelhouse is high-end air rifles, and so that's what we focus on primarily is the higher-end products, mostly PCP, which means pre-charged pneumatic, meaning they're a compressed air rifle. So you're not compressing springs or anything like that, like a brake barrel. It's all ran off high pressured air, and they're extremely accurate, extremely precise. So, and I mean, the appeal is they're crazy accurate, but they're nearly silent. There's no recoil. So anybody can shoot them and shoot them well. They're really fun. So that's what we do. So
let me interrupt you there. When you say high end, you said high end. My initial experience with air guns was the old Benjamin Sheridan 22 cal, right? Just a single pump, and it was, you could shoot out. You hit the pop can of ways. This dates back 35 years, right?
Yeah.
This is a long time ago. Fast forward to today, and we're carrying around what look like compressor tanks and some pretty fancy equipment that Derek had.
Yeah.
So go into a little bit more about what makes an air gun high end.
You got it. So, and first off, I became addicted as a human being to air guns from an old.
Okay.
My dad gave me a Sheridan Blue Streak when I was barely old enough to pump. I had to put it between my legs.
Yeah, pull hard
because it was, so. But high end, I say high end because there's levels to this game, like we said.
Sure.
But high end meaning the valving technology, the pressure regulators in them, the barrel technology, the triggers, everything that goes into making one as high end as possible. That all goes into it. How good the trigger is, how good the barrels are. That's a huge factor, and how consistent we can make it shoot a burst of air.
Okay.
So that's a huge thing, and that's what makes these so accurate as well. Is we can control velocity down to the foot per second.
Wow.
So
spreads of 1 foot per second. And
yeah, so if we're really dialed in, we can, we'll have an extreme spread of 3 and a standard deviation of 1.
Wow.
Okay. So, and without having to do too much with them, they're going to still do an extreme spread of 12 feet per second or so, with still standard deviations in that 4 range. So extremely consistent, and it's not limited to that by temperature, environment. It's going to stay that consistent until the pressure in that gun reaches down to its regulated, what it's set, regulated to operate at. It's going to be perfect.
Okay.
And so it makes it very appealing because it's so consistent, so accurate. And that's what kind of I would justify as the high end.
Okay.
The other part of the high end is their higher price. They cost more than your standard pump up air guns. So, but they're just they're a lot of fun.
I can tell by the smile that
yeah. So, and I guess more diving in what Utah Airguns does and why we where we went from that. To give you a little background, I could
please
explain a little bit before, is I own a convenience store.
Okay.
In a little town called Springville, Utah.
Yeah.
And I started, I got into the higher end air guns, just shooting them as hobby, and after you're fully invested a ways, you start going, maybe I could sell these.
Can I offset some of this money I've sunk in?
Yeah, exactly. And I have a brick and mortar store to, whether it's a gas station or a warehouse or whatever, but I meet the criteria to possibly, get set up as a dealer for some of these companies. So I started reaching out and they set me up, and I started just selling guns kind of word of mouth. And there was a dairy farm, a couple blocks away from my store. And when people were interested, I'd say, get in the truck, let's go.
So you had your range.
Yeah.
Down there.
So we would drive down to the dairy, and I'd let them shoot, and I'd kind of play the airgun caddy around the dairy. Oh, that's hold 2 dots down, hold a little left, shoot.
Yeah.
And they're shooting pigeons and doves at a long ways away, and they're just like, this is unbelievable. So that's how it started, and then it started to get more and more popular because anybody who would buy one, 5 of their buddies had to have them because they had just that much fun.
Yeah.
And finally, it got to be like, this is probably a little bit more than we should be doing in a gas station. We're sitting here showing air guns up, and people are like, what is going on here?
I just want my gas. And
yeah. So I thought, well, maybe this time we kind of separate the two. So I rented a little shop, and I hired a girl to start basically build the website and do some graphic design, design logos, whatever. And it started to go from there. And then we wanted to, we started going to a lot of shooting competitions with air guns, and pretty soon we kind of developed that, hey, let's make parts that are customized air guns that like I see a need for, like ARCA rails. Like nobody even knew what an ARCA rail was back then. So stuff like that. And so we started evolving competitions as well. And so I'm like, well, we should host a competition and start doing this stuff. So we, over the years, I started a competition. It's called the Rocky Mountain Airgun Challenge. It's now the biggest airgun competition in the world of its kind.
Wow.
That we host every year in June. And
where does that take place?
It's in Utah. So it's in Garth Kilpack shooting range in Springville, Utah.
Okay.
So we get people from, last year I think we had 24 countries here.
Whoa.
So
wow.
And we throw a lot of cash prizes out. We give away $100,000 cash in that competition. So there's different divisions. So you've got bench rest, you've got speed, like man versus man speed competition, kind of the PRS or NRL style competition as well. And then we have a big bore event where you're shooting the big, 45, 50 cals and stuff like that at long distance. But first place in the pro classes and those, in the bench rest is $20,000. Same with the precision. So
you guys aren't messing around.
And we're not messing around.
What constitutes long range in this space? You said the big bore long range. What kind?
So the big bore, I think our farthest target was 600 yards.
Woo!
Yeah. So
what grain projectile is that?
Guys are shooting anywhere from 180 to 300 grain bullets and that stuff. So
my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So crazy big air guns. So, but then, in the precision stuff, like we compete also, with the PRS and NRL rimfire competition with air guns as well. So,
okay. In those competitions, there's a classification of air gun.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So in those competitions, typically, I think the farthest target I have for this, and those are all, you're required to use a smaller, 140 foot-pounds or under for those competitions. So typically you're going to see like 22, 25, 30 calibers. 290 yards, I think, was our farthest target this year in that competition. But average, the same that you're going to see in a NRL X match, right? So sure. 300 yards and in, but pretty sporty targets. And we've gotten pretty elaborate with our competition as far as like the props and setup. We had, one of them was you're shooting from an A-Star helicopter this year, and 2-story elevated platforms, or one year we had some like big armored vehicles, and we kind of try to make it really, so there's themes to each stage in the competition, and make it exciting. And we have Shooting USA, they're covering at the TV shows, and American Airgun or the TV shows covering. So, and all the influencers from the airgun world, that is the Super Bowl of events for airguns, right? So
okay.
So that's where we get into that. I don't know where I went off on Utah Airguns and how we separated in competition, but
love it. That's what we're.
But as far as the high end and what Utah Airguns does, we kind of have a model like what you guys have, where we will custom build, custom tune what the customer requests. If they wanted to shoot a 30 grain slug out of a 22 caliber barrel, whatever the platform is, we will build it, tune it, run it with the most accurate tune, and then send it to the end user. So they open the box, it's ready to shoot.
Okay, so you're doing, in essence, we have like a data package, for example, where we're shooting for data and muzzle velocity and marking that turret for us. So you're similar concept what you're doing.
Correct. Yeah.
Out of the box.
Yeah. So, and we'll go through if somebody doesn't want us to do all of that and they just want to, go online and buy the airgun and we ship it right to the doors, that's fine too. Yeah. But it all gets checked for functionality, air testing, everything. And we were kind of the first in that industry to go through all of that with every single gun. And we just thought, because I know when I would get air guns personally, and if there was something that wasn't great about it or wasn't what I thought it could be, when I bought it online, sucks. You're like so, at least I was so pumped to get this air gun. And sometimes, you're invested a couple $1,000s in an air gun and you get it and it's not what you want it to be. Like, I knew what that felt like, and I was like, I never want our customers to have that experience. Yeah. I want them to have the experience that got me addicted to it, which was I pull out of the box, shoot, and it's like perfect. I'm just blown away by the accuracy and the sound and everything else comes along with it, that's what I wanted to create. So it was important for me when I built the new location. It's, right now it's 12,500 square feet, and we have a 35-yard range in the actual shop, and it's really cool. Looks like a shooting gallery more than it does a shooting range. We've got sand on the floor and desert decorations and stuff, and reactional targets all over. It's it.
Okay.
So, but I wanted people to be able to, like, instead of just see it online, like that was always a frustration. I wanted to like touch it, see it, like what is this really like? And so it was important. I put a range in so people could come visit and shoot and see what they like. And so it's been a fun journey, but it's grown from there doing that. And so now we're on our third location. We just started construction. We're building 46,000 square feet. So
wow. So
it's been a fun. It's been a fun.
From the gas station to
from a gas station. Yeah.
Very neat. I don't shoot. This is a very new product for me. When someone goes onto your site or someone starts shopping, we get the call all the time here. They've seen it somewhere. Maybe they heard about it on long range shooting on a podcast or something, right? So they get a little bit of that itch, and they come to you. Why are people coming to the airgun space? What's the most common? What do you think that reason is?
I think, a big reason is you can shoot them with it. I mean, we're getting, like we talked about in Utah, it's so getting more and more densely populated, and your areas to shoot are diminishing quick.
Sure.
So something where you can still be backyard friendly.
Yeah.
To a point.
Sure.
Sure. And your ammunition is almost nothing compared. If you're buying a 10 of the best pellets in the world for 500 of them in 22 caliber, you're paying $20.
Sure.
So
yeah,
and you can get the trigger time because they're silent. And it's fun for families. Women tend to be timid of noise and recoil.
Sure.
Honestly, and usually it's some jerk handed them a gun that's going to kick their head off the first time, and they did that, and they're like, I don't love shooting ever again.
Yeah, one and done.
Instead of like pink, and they hit the target they're shooting at, and they're like, oh, this is pretty good, and then so I would say that's a lot of it. The noise, the recoil, the ability to be able to shoot it inexpensive, and to be able to shoot in areas where you typically couldn't just go shoot a firearm, I would say is the biggest attractions. And we can ship it to your doorstep.
Yeah. Okay. So regulated by our friends at the ATF.
Yeah. Unless you live in the wonderful state of New Jersey or Illinois.
So there's
a couple that we have to do FFL transfers.
Wow.
So,
okay. Okay. So I see, on your site, I'm poking around. If I'm calling in for the first time and I say, I want to get into shooting air guns.
Yeah.
Which direction do I go? Well, so what is the line of questioning? What do you want to know from me to take me down the right path for the product?
So the first thing the salespeople will ask is, okay, did you have an idea what you want to use it for, or where you want to use it? What's your purpose in mind?
Sure.
And then they can start steering you. Like, okay, do you have a budget in mind, or if you don't want to just flat out say, what's your budget?
Sure.
I don't love that question at all.
But you got to get to the point to understand.
You do got to get to the point. So I like that. Like, if I'm handling that, I would like to ask people, what do you shoot now? Like, what's your what are you into? Do you like?
Sure.
When they start telling you, well, I shoot a Gunwerks, and you can start figuring out.
Sure.
Or is it I shoot a Savage, and
maybe they're getting into the sport. Maybe they're knee deep, and you can go from there.
And you're always going to have the people that either they really like their buy once, cry once material, or they may be like, you know what, a $400 scope and a $400 rifle is plenty. It's more than I'll ever love.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
But we want to start narrowing it down, and then it's like, okay, where do you plan on shooting? Are you going to shoot this? For air guns, is going to be your truck gun? Like, and some people look at you like, what? Like, look, I'm not the law. I'm just asking where, because not that it's illegal to shoot an air gun from a vehicle in some places or not, but most places it's not. But that would determine, okay, now are we looking at a bullpup style, or are we going to that's shorter, maybe easier to handle in a ground blind or in a moving blind or whatever, or do you see yourself setting up on the shooting bench and just getting a lot of
shooting nice groups out down range?
So we'll start really narrowing it down that way, because we don't want to sell you something that you feel like it's too much for you, or it was like, I wish I had better. So we try to narrow it down, and our guys are really good at doing that and being able to kind of steer you towards what you're after.
Yeah.
So
very similar to, what understanding the purpose of what's going to happen with the gun.
Yeah.
And so I see, looks like, give me the range of what someone could spend if they wanted to get entry level to test it out. What are they going to spend on one of the rigs?
So you can start entry level pre-charged guns for, as low as a couple $100.
Okay.
And then you're going to need an optic of some sort, typically. And you're going to need a way to fill it with high pressured air.
Okay.
So whether that be a hand pump that looks like a bike pump.
Like a bike pump. Okay.
Yep. Very similar to that. Or there's, compressors that are made just to fill the guns. And then you have the majority of what we sell is a bottle, like you were talking about. It's a carbon fiber bottle that holds 4,500 PSI. You just top your gun off when needed with that, and you get it filled at like a dive shop or an airgun shop or whatever.
You take that bottle in, they fill that, and that bottle then fills your...
Correct. That's your fill station after that. So it's kind of... There's good reasons to not do one or the other. Typically, if you're on a budget and you're buying a gun that has a pretty small air reservoir, I would say just get you a hand pump.
Yeah,
it'll do just fine.
Yeah, skip your workout and you're fine there.
Yeah. You 6-minute abs, whatever. So
like it.
But and if it's got a bigger air reservoir, I'd say don't do a hand pump. You're gonna regret that. It's gonna take more work than it's worth.
Yeah.
So that's but hand pumps are the cheapest option for air. So you're looking, $150, $200 for a pump, or, depending on what, quality you want. Or, the tanks jump up quite a bit in price. You're going to be looking $600-$700 for that type of system. So it's, I did answer the rest of the question. The guns, okay. So $200 for a gun, but then optics and air supply. And then we have guns from $200 up to $5,000.
Okay. So if I want to go into the deep end, I could spend $5,000 on a gun.
Yeah. And that is going to be, that's going to be on your, the highest possible.
Cadillac.
Yeah. That's more than the Cadillac. It's like a exclusive to that.
Okay.
But our average sale for an airgun typically though is about $1,500.
Okay.
So, and that's going to get you an extremely nice air rifle. So
very cool. So very interested in the optics side of things. What we do here. What are you looking for, or what are you counseling customers on? They should be looking for on an optics going on an air gun. What are the important features there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we get a lot of questions. First is, do you have to have a specific scope for air guns? Because I've heard they get ruined, and that comes from the break barrel style. Anything that's a spring piston gun, that will absolutely demolish a regular rifle scope because of that reverse recoil.
Okay.
So you can destroy a really nice rifle scope really fast with something like that. With the pre-charged stuff, there is no recoil.
Okay.
So I tell people, look, the main things I'd want you to look at is something that has an adjustable parallax so that you can parallax down. Find an optic that parallaxes down to at least 25 yards. If you get down into 15, even better, because chances are with an air gun, you'll be shooting a shorter distance. So something that doesn't have an adjustable parallax, that it's kind of set for 100 yards.
Yeah.
And you're going to have parallax before that or after that. So,
sure.
So that's the main things I say is just make sure that it's going to have a parallax adjustment so that you can focus at close range and not lose accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then it's kind of
Some elevation adjustment, I'm guessing, to shoot some of those distances, being able to, are you dialing much or are we holding over?
There's a ton of dialing. But, especially on the high end side, we sometimes need to stop ourselves and say, like, some people may not even know what you're talking about. If we say, do you dial or are you holding over? They'd be like, what are you talking about?
Sure.
So we do make sure we're like, do you have optics that you use now that you like? That way it's time to fill out. Do you think you'd ever be interested in dialing, with a dope card versus just a holdover? And
they say they shoot their night force and quickly they're comfortable.
Yeah,
doing something like that.
You probably want an exposed turret, something that you can dial for some, And so
very cool.
So those are the things we'd start to ask you.
Okay. So. Different between, I'm seeing some traditional style stocks, this FX DRS Classic versus some of these, very tactical looking setups. Is it just a matter of style, or is there some function benefit in the different?
In some, there are some function benefits.
Okay.
For the most part, it is a preference thing and kind of how you like it. But, like that DRS Classic you were talking about, if you look at it, you can't see an air tank on that gun.
Yeah.
The air tank's around the barrel. So that's a very unique, that's a unique purpose. Like if somebody wants something that like looks and feels like a traditional, 22 or rifle like that, that's a great way to do that. Or it's something that's really lightweight.
Sure. Are they giving up much in terms of functionality to get that around the barrel?
Not so much functionality, but you're going to give up, like you're going to sacrifice how many shots you get per fill.
Okay.
Once you fill your gun.
Okay.
Because obviously the air reservoir is small, but it's still going to get you, especially if you're shooting pellets versus a slug, you're going to get plenty, you're still going to get 25 to 50 shots per fill on even something like that. So,
sure.
And, where you lose function is typically if you run a lot shorter barrels or smaller air capacity, that's where you can lose power capabilities and stuff, because some of you do need a longer barrel to get to power. So, So.
I see. I could go through some caliber. I've got some options between 17 up to 25 and something like that. Does this come down to what I'm trying to achieve with the gun? Is that how you would make the recommendation there? What are some of the different scenarios?
Yeah. So, for example, if we're kind of getting to feel like, what does this customer want, or what are they going to need? We'll start asking, like, you want to do some plinking, like and maybe like birds, small game, a 17 or 22 probably be ideal for you. If you want to move up to something, a little bit bigger size, like some, rock trucks or raccoons or, something like that, or you want to kind of shoot a little bit further and have some more power, let's maybe look at a 25 or a 30 caliber. Okay. Maybe you want to shoot further than that. Maybe you want to start getting into dialing those turrets and running the dope chart. Maybe we want to get you something that shoots slugs with some power. Because you can shoot a lot further distance. That way, a 250-yard shot, or like your guys were shooting a plate at 400 yards today with the Airguns, just shaking their heads like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
So but you just start kind of going off of that. But it's, if they say, well, I'm kind of looking for something for deer or, something. Okay, well, let's start talking about maybe 35 cal plus, maybe a 45, 50 cal,
50 cal air rifle.
Yeah, we have 72 caliber air rifles.
Jeez, that's nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, and they shoot really good.
Wow.
So
yeah, if you're controlling the airflow like you're talking about, that's incredible. For us on the ammo manufacturing side, to achieve that kind of tolerance is just a dream.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's that's what we're kind of riding on, some of that stuff, like the capabilities that airguns have. How do we make them better to where we can start competing with like a rimfire even closer? And so that's where we've come into like customize, like making the perfect ammunition, the perfect barrels, like playing with twist rates, length, all that stuff that you would do with doing load development, right? So it's kind of the same way, but we're just an infant industry, I feel like, compared to firearms. So it's fun being on the front end of that. I like always evolving what's going on with them.
Yeah, very exciting. So I'm guessing, I'm very interested. I think about, you were down shooting today at our training facility. That's where we handle our long range university.
Yeah.
It was quiet today, obviously, middle of January. We shut down classes there. End of October, we pick back up March-ish or so. But for 7 months or so, that place gets filled heavily with folks coming in to learning to shoot, at distance, a lot of times with our equipment, a lot of times with their own equipment.
Yeah.
And the factors, if we can map what the bullet's going to do for drop and map what the bullet's going to do for any kind of wind deflection, then all of a sudden the odds go quickly into our favor.
Sure.
So there's a lot. We're running our Revic Optics app where we're inputting the pertinent information to get any kind of drop in terms of muzzle velocity, the BC of the bullet, the weight of the bullet. We're not tracking foot-pounds of energy so much on our side, but some folks do. But that's the tool we're using to map both of those, down and left or right. What are you guys, and I imagine the guys that are versed in it, maybe the guys or gals that are shooting in some of those NRL or PRS, they probably have their favorite. Where are you pushing guys to understand? Because the drop's one part, but left and right's just, every bit as important.
Yeah.
What are you doing for that system to help get guys those impacts downrange?
So obviously having a smart optic like that is a huge advantage.
Okay.
But if it, I guess as starters, we'd say, hey, at least get a ballistic solving app of some kind, whatever you choose, whether it be applied ballistic or if it be Geo, whatever you want to use.
In this case, we'll push them the Revic Optics app.
To the Revic.
Okay.
Yeah. And by the way, the Revic Optics app is super easy to use. So that's nice to put your information in. So yes, that's something like that where at least you have a solver. And we try to educate people like, here's why this input is important. Otherwise, it's not going to spit you out the right information.
So the technology and getting a good BC for that projectile, you're very comfortable with that. It's very advanced in that regard.
Yeah, and luckily we and we're actually getting to that with the Revic app is we're starting to get Airgun projectile data compiled. So a lot of the other companies are doing the same thing. They're starting to see this Airgun thing's kind of serious, and so they're like, hey, well, we need projectile data for Airguns, so we're starting to build that too. So that's good.
A drag
that's
standard
helpful.
Essentially for the Airguns.
Yeah, and it's a little bit tricky because typically we're gonna run off a G1, but it's an interesting drag scale, we'll call it, because with a pellet, it's a drag stabilized projectile. Like it is stabilized by dragging air, essentially. So, so it's a different. How do you build a G1 profile for a pellet? You kind of don't. You're going to have to build a custom drop chart. There are ballistic solvers that have pretty good drag systems for that, but it goes back to just you really need to get into checking it and verifying stuff.
Yeah, we call it kind of truing the profile.
You got to true your profile. So, and for people that don't know what that is, probably this audience knows exactly what we're talking about. But if you say, "Hey, did you true up your dope yet?" and are you tracking right now? They're going, "Yeah, I try." Yeah. So, if we're speaking the language that people do know, yes, we need to true data just like anything else. We'll true it up, and whether that custom drop chart is by truing speed or it's BC or both, and we just want to get tracking. So we can verify 3-4 different ranges and know that we're tracking and we're good. So
that's fascinating. That is fascinating. I'm curious on I can see the application, right, for my nieces and nephews, right, shooting these things, right, just having a riot with the capability of some of the things. Myself personally, I'm quite intrigued by, and I have it pulled up here on the computer here, about SCI adding this, airgun category. I'm fascinated by that. And how many of your customers do you think are out hunting like big game? What is the big game hunting market right now? I mean, if SCI made a category for it, it's growing to some level.
It's growing. It is growing. It's growing quite a bit now. And especially when you start talking like, I could be in a record book. So that's pretty cool. Right now, as far as our business goes, it's still a pretty small percentage of what we do, just because regulations in each state, and we're getting there. We're getting laws changed in every state to get air guns included in their regulations, but it's also a seasonal thing, right? You still have a hunting season for big game, where the pest control and small game stuff, you're going to be out doing that all the time. So that we sell a lot more of that. 17 to 30 cal is definitely the popular, but hunting with the air guns, and now we have air guns that shoot a bolt, or not even a short bolt, like almost a full length arrow, 400 grain arrow, 400 feet per second. Wow. Extremely accurate too.
Wow. Okay, I read that so let me just read an excerpt of SCI. This was their their bulletin on that. It said, previously, hunters could only submit air gun entries under the rifle category. SCI recognizes the popularity of these weapons among sportsmen and women, as well as their capability to ethically harvest large game. With the legalization of air guns for hunting in many U.S. states, their predominant use in Europe, and the interest expressed by SCI members and non-members alike, the SCI Record Book Committee unanimously voted, it's interesting, to approve the creation of a separate category for these weapons. And so entries will be accepted under the single category of air gun. Hunters should additionally indicate on their entry bullet or shaft, with some air guns capable of shooting arrows.
That's interesting. I didn't know they specified that, like, if you're shooting
sounds like they want you to share on the entry, which
fair enough.
Which form?
Yeah.
400 feet a second, huh? 400
or more. Yeah, they can fling some arrows pretty fast.
Listen, so why? Let's talk about Utah. That's your home state. Can you hunt in Utah with an air gun? Big game.
So.
Do we need to get a hold of the technology committee?
Don't get me started. No.
Boston's listening.
We're getting there. But so right now in Utah, to hunt big game with air guns, you can only use the arrow shooters, and it's only in any weapon season. Or if you're on a CWMU, you can shoot from September 1st through October 31st with the air guns that shoot arrows.
Air guns only with arrows. So the pellets are out right now. Okay.
Yeah, we're getting there. So we do have turkeys now. We can hunt fall turkeys with arrow rifles.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool.
Fall turkeys with arrow. Why not spring?
And obviously all the small game and varmint stuff, that's no problem. Sure. But as far as the big game category goes, we're still limited to arrows only.
Okay.
I don't think it'll be too much longer, I hope.
And why? What's
because nobody, well, I think there was some. Well, I'll be honest. Here's the biggest hang up and the thing I fought the most is Pittman and Robertson tax, because air guns don't pay that federal firearms tax, which goes to conservation. But I've had to educate people how much of that fund actually, like what that means, because the big fight is like, well, if they're not paying into that, why should you be able to hunt with them? Fair assumption. But I think it's also fair to note, like, that people are educated on how much of that actually goes to conservation.
Sure.
And I'll just give you a number for Utah, 0.004% of that.
Okay.
And the only way Utah can get more money towards conservation through that tax is if you sell more tags. So if we can sell more hunting tags by opening up air guns, it's the difference of, we did a calculation for, I think it was the Turkey Foundation at one point, because they were kind of bucking against us at one point. Like, we don't want you guys in. And I'm like, okay. So I broke it down. I said, look, I'm going to take just annual sales for what our data is for the year and put it into that fund. Do all the calculations. It was like $2,600.
Nothing.
I'm like, do you want to check?
Yeah, nothing.
Is that what it takes to get hunting here for everybody?
Sure.
So fighting that's been a trick, but now
sounds like you've been involved a little bit.
I have, and I've even had I've went and spoke at RAC meetings and stuff for the DNR to explain, because they get asked the questions all the time too. So they're like, "Can you help us out with this?"
Yeah,
because and we've done demonstrations for DNR and energy testing and everything that you could see, and they're like, "We love it." So as far as the DNR goes, they're 100% for it. It's whoever these.
So you think the almighty dollar might be having a bit of an influence in some of the
and I think just the misunderstanding. I think people hear air guns and like, that's not ethical.
Sure. And their air gun they grew up with probably wasn't. But
Oh yeah, absolutely wasn't. But
this is
if they saw what they're capable of now, a whole different story.
Yeah.
So,
is there a state that is the kind of like the leader in this that's really embraced it?
It's legal in quite a few states now. I mean, the closest to me is Idaho. Idaho, you can hunt big game with air guns, with air gun slugs. So, but obviously Texas and some of those are big advocates of that. So yeah. So,
this is fascinating. I think this is there's some folks that really chase this, and I think it's neat. They're piling up, award after award after award, and I think this literally all of a sudden they've got more homework in front of them to open up a new category, with a new weapon.
Yeah. So the fact that SCI recognized us like that was pretty cool. When I heard that, I was like, that's a victory, right?
It's a neat, nod to your industry.
Yeah.
Good friend and kind of a partner of ours in a lot of stuff we do. The group at WTA, Mark Peterson, he's chasing a 29, North America 29 with all three weapons: archery, muzzleloader, and rifle system, which is next level. And we'll have to
we got to
issue him. We'll have to enter him at down. Yeah, let's let him get through the majority of that, and we'll share this memo from SCI with him about going back in air again. But have you done much big game hunting yourself with the air guns?
I've done a bit, yeah. I've killed I think 2 or 3 mule deer now with the air gun in Utah.
Okay,
and that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and then from what I'm told, I was the first person ever to kill a hog from a helicopter with an air gun.
Okay,
that was pretty cool. But so yeah, I've done some hog hunting and some deer hunting and stuff like that. So I haven't been, laying down the record books yet. But
sure. Well, now you challenges there. SCI is ready for you. It sounds like.
That's right.
Speaking of the the ammo and that. I'm guessing similar to our space where you can spend a little on the bullets and you can spend a lot. Is there a big range for what you're doing there?
There is a bit of a range. Obviously, the big bore slugs, that's just a lot of lead. And there's not really a swaging process for those great big, looking like a muzzler. So it's casting. So it's more expensive, but not terrible.
No.
But and obviously swage slugs typically are a little bit more expensive than a pellet.
Yeah.
But outside of that, not really. There's not a huge gap like you would see in loaded ammunition.
Sure. Yeah. Ours got pretty skewed there during COVID between a couple dollars a shot with factory and $15-20 a shot with some high end premium stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we when everybody ran out of rimfire ammunition too, that was kind of a boost in airgun sales at that point. Because it was like the same use people wanting to buy shooting rimfire 22s.
Yeah.
I don't remember how long, but there was a 2-3 year span where it was extremely hard to just go find.
If you saw a buck, you bought it, right?
Yeah.
Even though you weren't looking, that was
Yeah, and then you had people starting to figure out like the schedule at Sportsman's Warehouse when they were getting their
when the drops would happen,
and they'd buy them all that morning and So that was that sucked for some. It didn't suck for us. It was a good thing for us. Where people are like, well, I'm going to start trying this airgun thing. And then they start shooting, and they're like, I'll never shoot my 22 again.
Yeah.
But
yeah, we see folks in our space. I got a good customer, a good friend who is done very well for himself. He's got a number of our rifles, and he talks about the 22. We did a Gunwerks project, and we did that 22, and he talks more about that and the trigger time and the practice.
Yeah,
he loves getting the kids behind it, and just loves that ability to practice. And so I could really see someone looking for that, some wind understanding. I got to assume that you could go get a wind education for a fraction of what you spend on some high-end, ammunition in that space. It's going to perform the same.
It's funny you mention that, because at the range today, some of your guys started to shoot, and they're like, "What am I doing wrong?" And I'm watching the wind going, "Oh, trust me, it's not you.
Yeah.
It's the wind. And so I started to explain them. Hey, wind just died. And they're like, it did? I'm like, it died.
Yeah.
It picked up. And I said, trust me, this comes from shooting an airgun because you'll pay attention to wind real good. You get to read wind really well when you're shooting an airgun because there is, especially pellets, like that is a huge factor.
Yeah.
Is your wind, even a little bit of wind, like you have to account for it. So, so it's a great way to learn how to start reading wind. And, we did a thing for a while, and we'll do it for people. Sometimes they say, hey, I want to mimic my 6.5 Creedmoor at 1,000 with an airgun. And so we'll build a profile and that basically they can use the same tracking for a 200-yard span that they do for 1,000 with the Creedmoor.
Sure.
So that it's just practice time to get, if you don't have a smart optic like a Revic where it's in your scope already, if you're in a hunting situation, you don't want to be slow at range, check a data card, check your you need to be quick. So it's good practice to be able to just dial a distance, shoot, see if you're tracking. Yeah. So we'll do that sometimes, just that people want to have a mimic of their, their dialing, so they can just practice that. I mean, obviously, you're not mitigating recoil, so it's not.
Sure.
I learned real quick around people like PRS shooters when I started saying these are a great trainer, and I felt like they were a good trainer because you could practice building positions with them, which you can. Yeah. But if you're not mitigating recoil, it's not a good trainer.
Sure. Yeah. No, fair.
But in all reality, everybody I know that shoots airguns said it made them a better shooter. But you do have to learn how to mitigate recoil as well. So
yeah, absolutely. What is so I call in and we walk through and we find the platform that I like. What's the lead time? How long am I waiting for one of these?
Typically, I mean, if we have it in stock, which I'd like to hope that we do, it's typically a few day turnaround.
Okay, so something
it's pretty quick usually. If there's a backlog, which there is sometimes we're back ordered on things, but we stock a lot of inventory. So I mean, we at all times we're $4 million in inventory sitting there. So we try to keep it everything in stock. Sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's not. So
your model is to try and you're getting a ship out. This is in our space where you call today and you want to order your 7PRC. We're quoting you 90 to 120 days, and it's been that way for a very long time. Yeah. But you're trying to capture that and get it out quickly.
Yeah, where we're not manufacturing. Yep. We're able to place big orders, and in fact, for one of the biggest airgun companies here, FX Airguns, they're out of Sweden. We are the U.S. distributor now for them. So we're stocking on the wholesale side and on the retail side as well. So typically we're able to turn that around, but there are times where there's a wait. So, but we're
the instant gratification, most part.
Instant gratification usually. So
it comes to the door. I don't go to the FFL and I start shooting within a week.
Correct. Yeah, and especially if you paid for us to mount and sight your optic, you bought the whole package. Yeah. You take it out of the box and it is money.
And you're hammering.
Yeah. So super fun.
That is.
And
cool.
It just ships right to your door. So that's cool. Always fun. So
you need to, if as we wrap up here, how do folks get a hold of you? Where would they go to the website? That's your preferred. Where would you send them?
Yep. So UtahAirguns.com is the website. Okay. Obviously you can call our shop. It's Orem, Utah. Yeah. Utah Airguns. And if you want to do some research, you want to watch some videos and find out more, you can go to our YouTube channel, Utah Airguns. Yeah. And start exploring from there. But
catch walk through Wednesday, maybe see a little bit on work.
Walk through Wednesday. You're going to a walk through of Gunwerks, so you better pay attention. So but those are the best ways to get a hold of us. Call in or jump online, go through it, and if you have questions, just jump on the phone, call us. Our staff are experts.
Sure.
We feel like we are the best people in the industry of this. So so if you have questions, just call us. We can help you out right then. But you'll always get to talk to a human being. It's and not just an operator. So that's good.
Well, that's pretty exciting. I mean, a person in a couple weeks could be rocking and rolling and playing with this. The competition thing is probably a completely separate discussion for another day. But what a growing sport, right? And to hear this discipline as well. Seems like somebody could take this hobby that started for you and it could get It could probably get time consuming. It could get expensive. It could get all of those things.
It can be a hobby that is a rabbit hole, just like anything else.
Yeah.
But it's a good way to get a lot of trigger time. If you just want to be able to shoot and have crazy accurate, just have a good time, it's a great way to go.
No, that sounds
so. Yeah.
Sounds really exciting. We appreciate your time. I know you're busy coming up to Cody here to see us. That does mean a lot. Will you guys be exhibiting at Salt Lake? Do you have a booth?
Yeah, so we have a big booth at the Hunt Expo this year again. So we're always there. So you can come check out all of our stuff there at the Hunt Expo. Yeah. I think we've got a 2-story display this year.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So that's fun.
Well, hopefully there was some film rolling this morning. I'd love to see which one of our team members was struggling with wind. That'll be good fodder for around the
air. I love it because they give each other as much flack as our guys give each other. So it was a good friendly banter going on. It was fun.
I'll be sure to find
everything turns into a competition when you're around competitive guys, right?
That's very true.
Oh, you suck. I beat you. That's fun.
That's cool.
So,
well, again, Justin, very cool, very neat business, very cool product. Thanks for coming up today and sharing it with us and our viewers. For you listening and watching, we appreciate your time today and look forward to catching up next week.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
If you like what you're hearing here, please take a second and give us a 5-star rating and a positive review on iTunes or on your favorite podcast app. We appreciate your feedback and suggestions for topics you'd like discussed or questions you want answered on the podcast. You can reach out on Facebook or Instagram or send us an email to podcast@gunwerks.com. Also, be sure and check out our full offering of long-range gear at gunwerks.com. Use promo code LRP for free shipping on any order.